Oh, oh, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayani Amba Tvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshini Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavai Vedai Sangapadakramopanisadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam navidutsura suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya namaha. Om Shri Saraswati namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo namaha. So last week we started the 14th chapter, which is chapter about gunas, gunatraya vibhaga yoga. So the three gunas are explained in detail, which earlier Bhagwan had said in the 13th chapter, Purusha Prakriti Sthohi, Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Guna, Karanam Guna Sangosya, Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. So Bhagwan had briefly mentioned the word gunas, that it is Purusha, the supreme consciousness abiding in Prakriti and enjoys. Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan, enjoys, experiences. Enjoys means experiences and also suffers. And Karanam Guna Sangosya Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. And it is because this Purusha gets caught up, attached to these gunas, that's what creates further problems. You know, different wombs he is born, different situations happen. So it is attachment to gunas. So Bhagwan himself feels that this topic of gunas needs to be explained further. Even though Arjuna had not asked, but as a good teacher knows that what is it that the student needs. So Bhagwan Shri Krishna himself starts the 14th chapter after having given all the ideas of the 12th and 13th chapters. As the first 6 chapters talk about me, the 7th to 12th talk about God. And from 13th onward, how do I connect to God? And in the 13th, he had said how the spirit and matter work together to create this whole universe. And so now he's talking about the 3 gunas. And what are the gunas? We will mention that later in this talk. But the significance of this chapter, Bhagavan starts by the first two shlokas where he introduces why we should study this chapter. So he says, Param bhuya pravakshyami jnananam jnanam uttamam yad jnatva munaya sarve param siddhe mito gataha. He says, if you want to reach the highest knowledge, the state of enlightenment with me, then you have to know this particular knowledge, because how I should function in the world, purify my mind and reach the highest. Even though he says jnananam jnanam uttamam, he says it is the highest knowledge, because practice of this knowledge will take you to the highest knowledge, will take you to me. So this is the ladder. Without this ladder, you cannot climb to me. You cannot reach me. So he says, that's why I have to tell you again, because I have mentioned this in some of the previous chapters, but I will go in detail. And then in the second shloka, he says, Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sarge pinopajayante pralaye na vyathanti cha. He says, one who has upashritya, who has completely understood this knowledge and surrendered to this knowledge, become one with this knowledge and become one with me, then he comes to me. Mama sadharmyam agataha. He comes to me, he becomes one with me. And he had talked about me as form and formless both. But I, the supreme consciousness, he no longer realizes that I am separate from him. But then what is the benefit of doing this? I have studied 14 chapters, 13 chapters. What will I get out of it? So he says, such a person, sarge pinopajayante pralaye na vyathanti cha. No matter what circumstances come in his life, birth, of course, birth we don't know, but death he is not affected by. But we say death also I may not know. I may be in coma. So what the commentator says, that we constantly go through births and deaths, like childhood died, youth was born, youth dies, middle age is born, middle age will die, old age will be born, day dies and night comes. At physical level, we find my body was so healthy, now it's getting older, I'm getting wrinkles and I am not able to walk as much as I could. So that youth is gone. And now I feel that budhapa aa raha hai abhi, old age is coming. But such an individual knows that I am that supreme consciousness and this body's nature is to perish. So he or she does not get affected by physical changes and then emotional changes. Someday I'm happy, someday I'm sad, someday someone talked to me nicely, other days they didn't. But this individual knows that I am the supreme consciousness and the mind will go through its fluctuations. The intellect someday will be very brilliant, will be bright. Some days it will be confused. Someday I will be praised. Someday I'll be insulted. Someday I'll be criticized. But he says those are all fluctuations of the intellect. Such a person, pralayena vyathanti cha. He knows that anger will come, greed will come, jealousy will come, love will come, compassion will come, but he does not get affected. Not that he's a stone, but he realizes that whatever has come will go. Jo aaya hai, so jayega. I have come, I will also go. But I, as this body came and body went, but I, as the Atma, the consciousness, I'm always there and I will always be there. I will never perish. So that itself in the second chapter, the teacher had told us already. So that's what he says, that one who has understood this, then knows that birth and death are inevitable. He goes beyond birth and death, becomes one with me. Mama dharmyam agataha, sadharmyam agataha. So now we'll do the third shloka. The third and fourth shloka, Bhagavan talks about creation, how this world was created. And then from the fifth, he will now then dive into the chapter of the gunas. So third and fourth talk about creation. So we'll chant the third shloka. Chapter 14, shloka number 3. for those who have just logged in. Chapter 14, shloka number 3. Mama yonir mahad brahma.
Mama yonir mahad brahma.
Tasmin garbham dadhamyaham.
Tasmin garbham dadamyaham.
Sambhava sarva bhutanam.
Sambhava sarva bhutanam.
Tato bhavati bharata.
Tato bhavati bharata.
Mama yonir mahad brahma. Tasmin garbham dadhamyaham. Sambhava sarva bhutanam. Tato bhavati bharata. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, Mama yonir mahad brahma. Here the commentator says, it's not my womb is mahad brahma. Mama means mine, yoni means womb, mahad brahma means, here it means prakriti. Mahad brahma has many meanings, so we'll discuss that. So he says, it's not that my womb is prakriti, that means I was born out of prakriti. They said no. It is for poetry, it is done. He says, Mama mahad brahma yonihi. My prakriti is the womb. So Bhagavan says, I am the supreme consciousness, and in me this prakriti plays, and prakriti is the womb of this whole creation. So all of us have emerged from Mother Prakriti, from that, the creative power of the Lord. So Mama yonir mahad brahma. And this, in this womb, tasmin garbham dadhami aham. Tasmin, in that womb, garbham here means the life principle, the seed, garbham dadami aham, I give, I place. Dadhami means I place the seed of life, of consciousness in this womb called Prakriti. So because we are familiar with, a male and a female creation, so to make it easy to us, but what is the true meaning of this? We will cover that. So he says, I place the seed in this Prakriti, and Sambhava Sarva Bhutanam. Sambhava means creation. Sarva Bhutanam means sixth case plural of all beings. Sarva Bhutas, all beings, creation. Tato Bhavati Bharata. O Arjuna Bharata, that's how Bhavati, that's how this entire creation happens. So what happens? There is this Prakriti, which is the womb. I place the seed in it. I place the creative power in it. Even though Prakriti has the ability to create, but it is inert. It is my presence that gives life, consciousness, and this entire world is created. So beautiful topic of creation. In 2 verses, we will cover today how this creation happened. Everybody wants to know, how did this creation happen? They talk about Big Bang and all. So we'll explain all that. So Bhagavan says, but Prakriti is not separate from me. It is my manifestation alone. That's why he had said in the 9th chapter, Pitahamasya Jagataha Mata Dhata Pitamaha Vedyam Pavitram Omkaraha Riksam Yajurevacha. So I am the father of this universe. I am the mother. I am both. And I am the grandfather. Pitahamasya Jagat Mata Dhata Pitamaha. I am the supporter. What it means is that I am the original source from which both Prakriti and Purusha came. Matter and spirit, both are my manifestations. It's not that matter was lying somewhere and I found it and I created it. No, I myself, matter emerged from me. The example they give in the Upanishad is like a spider. Just as a spider, from his mouth comes this net, the spider, what do they call that? The spider's womb, not the net, whatever the spider's, how that originates. And the entire, you see the whole plant or the whole wall is covered by this spider's net, and from where the insects get caught. So from his mouth itself, this whole net is created. So that's why that's to give an example, So not that Bhagwan has a mouth, but from the Lord itself, this whole universe emerges and then merges back at the time of pralaya, at the time of dissolution, everything merges back into that supreme. So I am the creator and I am the sustainer, I am the destroyer. Everything merges back into me, the creator, sustainer, destroyer, all I am. That's why they say God, G-O-D, generator, organizer, destroyer, all three I am. And then he uses the word Mahat Brahma, Mama Yoni. We'll talk about Yoni in a little while, but Mahat Brahma. So the word Brahma is very confusing because it is used in many places. Brahma is used for the supreme consciousness, Brahman, the formless. Then it says Sagun Brahma. Also the form is also mentioned as Brahma. So one is the formless, which we call Father in heaven or Brahman or supreme consciousness. And then other are his manifestations, whether it's Lord Sri Krishna or Sri Rama or Jesus, all those Buddha, all those manifestations. So that is form, Saguna Brahma. Then the scriptures, the Vedas are also called Brahma. Karma Samudbhavam Vidhi, Karma Brahmat Bhavam Vidhi. So all karmas come out of the Vedas. That's why they are also called Brahma. So that means it is the teachings of the Lord that manifest in the Vedas, in the scriptures, or whether it's in the Bible or the Quran. So it is that supreme consciousness himself or herself manifests in these scriptures. And then the fourth description of Brahma is the creative force, which we call Mahat Brahma or Brahmaji. So we'll talk about that a little later, the creator. But it says the supreme consciousness, when functioning through Pragati. Pragati is the unmanifest form of this world, which we have studied in Tattva Bodh and Atma Bodh. How, because of Panchikrit, Pancha Mahabhutas, the unmanifest becomes manifest. So Prakriti is the original source. And then from that comes Hiranyagarbha, or which we call Ishvara. I mean, not Ishvara, the Mahat Brahma. Ishvara is the supreme consciousness functioning through Pragati, takes on the role of Ishvara, the creator, sustainer, destroyer. So Pragati is the creative force, Prakriti, and the supreme consciousness, when it functions through Prakriti, takes upon the role of Ishvara, who is the creator, sustainer, destroyer. And then from Prakriti comes Mahat Brahma, which is the total mind and intellect. First, Prakriti is the total unmanifest. And then from that comes the total mind and intellect, which is called Hiranyagarbha. And that is how the creation starts. And then from there come these 5 unmanifest elements. And then from that, they become manifest, which we have studied in detail. On Thursday, people are studying that. So then what is this Big Bang, they talk about? So it is explained beautifully in Rig Veda, in some of our Puranas, that there was this golden egg, the cosmic womb, which they call as Hiranyagarbha. That is called as the golden egg, golden womb. And it is said that great heat was generated in that, and it split into 2. Now, how was the heat generated? How they say, oh, Big Bang just happened by itself. But how was the sound? How was the energy came? Where did it come from? So our Puranas say that there was a ray of light, very powerful light. It's like a laser, but millions of times more powerful than a laser. And this beam of light, which was the origin of the original energy, penetrated into this cosmic egg, and it split into 2, and 1 half became the heavens, all the 14 worlds, and 1 half became this visible world that we can see. And then because of this heat, this egg was actually floating in a dark ocean of complete ignorance. But because of this energy of the Supreme Lord, this explosion happened and this whole universe manifested of names and forms, and all the planets and the stars and the sun and the moon and everything. So it is very, this Rig Veda is how many thousand years ago. They have described that in so much detail in our Puranas, which science only found out in the 20th century. They're talking about Big Bang and all. Our rishis knew that thousands of years ago, that this is how the split happened. And not only the visible world, but even the heavens were all created out of that. It's so beautifully described. If you read it, I was doing some research on that last night. It's so nicely, it is described how this whole universe came from that one compact egg. And that's even the science says that it was compact, the size of a grapefruit. And from that, this whole manifested world appeared. But they don't talk about the unmanifest world, but our Vedas talk about that also. So that is how this whole universe appeared. And how do we see that in the universe? Gurudev says it beautifully in his commentary. He says, whenever you see anything creative, an artist creating a beautiful painting, a poet composing poetry, a musician writing a beautiful piece of music, or a scientist, creating something new or finding out some new theories, you see that, Mama, I'm sure, he says, one part of me you will see there. That's what even Bhagavan says in the 10th chapter, Yat Yat Vibhuti Mat Sattvam. Wherever you see anything glorious, you will see a tiny part of me. So this creative power is the Lord himself. So whenever we create anything new or whenever we start anything new, we always express gratitude to the Lord that it is because of you, O Lord. Even when I'm making a beautiful dish in the kitchen and everybody appreciates it, immediately our thanks should go to the Lord. It is because of him that all this is happening. So that is the creative power, and that is called Mahat, Mahat Brahma. Mahat has many meanings. Some people say Prakriti's next stage is Mahat. Some people say Mahat is Brahmaji, the creator. Ramaban, can you mute, please?
Yeah.
Ramaban, please mute your phone.
Yeah.
So anything that is created is because of that. So how do we know that this world was created by the Lord? So they say that any effect must have a cause, right? Anything effect, if you see, or people say, oh, this world was just appeared by itself. I don't know if I mentioned the story or not. There was one man, I don't know, did I mention it a couple of weeks back? This one man didn't believe in God. He said, oh, the world appeared by itself. So he went to his friend's house and there was this beautiful model of the solar system. I don't think I told this story. There was this beautiful model of the solar system. So this man who didn't believe in God, he said, where did this model come from? The friend says, I don't know. He said, what do you mean I don't know? He said, last night it was not there. I woke up this morning and this huge model, which was filling half the room, appeared by itself. He said, come on, are you joking me? How can this beautiful model appear by itself? You say there was no creator? No, I slept last night. Subeh, it was there. He said, no, there has to be somebody who made it, right? He said, that's what I have been telling you all these years. The model of the solar system lying in my room, you say needs a creator, but this entire solar system with all the galaxies, you say doesn't have a creator, appeared by itself. So the point is that when you see an effect, there has to be a cause. And this world is an effect because it is constantly changing. Anything that is changing has to be an effect. The cause has to be changeless. And that changeless cause is the creator, which we call as Brahmaji, which we call as Hiranyagarbha. And this whole universe is a mixture of Purusha and Prakriti, matter and spirit, Kshetra and Kshetrajna. In the 13th chapter, Bhagavan Shri Krishna had explained. Kshetram is this visible world, all the body, minds, intellect, emotions, thoughts. everything, whatever physical, and the knower of the field, Kshetrajna Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata Kshetra Kshetrajnayor Jnanam Yattat Jnanam Matam Mama. Bhagavan says that I, the consciousness, am the knower in all the fields, and everything is happening because of my presence. So that one constantly should remember. Anything I see, hear, smell, taste, touch, it is the Lord functioning through these organs. And why am I not able to see God everywhere? It is said because of avidya, because of the power of Maya, which veils the divinity. And because of that, I project the plurality. The one consciousness is veiled. So avidya, Kama and karma. So because of ignorance, I don't think I am complete. I think I am limited. I don't know I am that supreme consciousness. So I have a desire, and out of desire comes actions. Out of incompleteness, all actions come. And this world is superimposed upon that consciousness. I superimpose this world upon this consciousness, which is the reality. So what do? And what we do is we get so much identified with this body, with this mind, with this intellect, with my house, with my possessions, that I forget that actually there is one consciousness. So they say detach, do not depend on these objects for your joy, find joy within. So beautiful instructions are given, complete detailed instructions are given by Bhagavan Sri Krishna to advise. So the point is that these instructions are meant for us to apply, not to give to others. See, we think that I have studied Bhagavad Gita now. I first must apply in my life, and then my life will change. Talking about given instructions, this man always used to give too many instructions to his wife. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, always. So they went to a restaurant and he forgot his wallet. So she fortunately had her wallet and credit card. So she took out and she was paying the bill at the restaurant. So he says, give the waitress a tip. So by now she was irritated because he had been giving her advice and instructions. So she calls the waitress. She says, let me give you a tip. Don't get married. So instructions are meant for us to apply, not to give to others. So that is the essence of this 33rd verse, where how this creation happened, how did this world come into being, is beautifully given in this 3rd shloka. And the 4th shloka will continue the same idea about creation. This is short. We will talk a little bit about creation and then go to the topic of gunas. So let's chant the 4th shloka. Sarvayonishu kaunteya
Sarvayonishu kaunteya
murtaya sambhavanti yaha
Murtaya Shambhavanti Yaha
tasam brahma mahadyonihi
Tasam Brahma Mahadyonihi
aham bija pradah pita.
Aham Bija Pradapita.
Together. Sarvayonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavanti yaha tasam brahma mahadyonihi aham bija pradah pita. So sarvayonishu is the 7th case plural. Sarvayonishu, in all yonis, in all wombs. O Kaunteya, O Arjuna. Yaha murtayaha sambhavanti. Yaha means those, murtayaha means those forms. Sambhavanti means which manifest, which are created. So whatever forms manifest in whatever wombs, whether it can be a human womb or an animal womb or a bird's egg or a fish egg or even a plant, a seed, whatever forms, all these billions of forms that we see, all these forms that manifest, tasam, of these Brahma Mahadyonihi, Brahma, here the Brahmaji, the Mahat Brahma, which is the womb, Mahadyonihi. It is the great womb we just talked about. So that Mahat Brahma is the great womb, and Aham, and I, the consciousness, Bija Prada Pitaha, I am the father which provides the seed, as we said, the light of consciousness, which illumines and creates all this variety. So even the womb was created by the Supreme only. It's not that it was separate, but as if two aspects, matter and spirit, the womb and the seed. So matter and spirit we have talked about. Matter is this visible form and spirit is the enlivening factor. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, Yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam sthavara jangamam kshetra kshetragnya samyogat tad vidhi Bharatarshava. O Bharatarshava, O great warrior of the Bharata family, whatever you see, sattvam sthavara jangamam, whatever is moving and unmoving. Not only the moving, not only the alive factors are me, but even the unmoving, the rocks, the stones, the rivers, the mountains, everything is me. And how does it come about? Kshetra, kshetragnya samyoga, the mixture of the field and the knower of the field. Together, when they get together, the spirit and the matter, then this world manifests, and the spirit enlivens this matter, gives life. And there are four kinds. Actually, our rishis beautifully categorized everything. So they say there are only four kinds of beings. Four kinds, you just said there are billions. How come there are only four? He said there's only four. It's talking about living beings. In Sanskrit, it says Udbija, Swedaja, Andaja, Jarayuja. If anybody wishes to follow these points, you can click on your chat feature on your computer and you can see these points. So you can follow. So we are in the fourth chapter, fourth shloka. So Udbija means one that comes out of the ground. So where do the plants come from? They come out of the ground, right? Udbija, they come up. Ut means up. So from the seed, the plant breaks through the ground and comes up. So that is called Udbija. So all vegetables, all plants are covered in that. Everything. These are talking about living being. Then the second is Swedaja. Swedaja means born out of sweat. So what do we mean born out of sweat? Born out of moisture. Like when it rains, right? Suddenly mosquitoes appear in the moisture. Where did they come from? They came from moisture. So these beings that come out of moisture are called Swedaja. So that includes all kind of mosquitoes, insects, all these tiny, suddenly they appear in the rain. We do not know from where. So that is called Swedaja. The third, the rishis are say Andaja. Andaja means born out of egg. So egg, like fish are born out of eggs, birds are born out of eggs. So that is, and some of these, crawling creatures are born out of eggs. So that is all Andaja. And the fourth is Jarayuja. Jarayuja means born out of the womb. And so that includes humans, all the animals, all that, because the birds and all are born out of egg. So in these four, all living creations are covered. Born from the ground, born from the moisture, born from the egg, and born from the womb. And so as we said, the womb and the seed are egg. So I described that in detail in the previous shloka, that the seed is the energy and the womb is the matter. And that's how the whole Srishti, the entire creation, has been described very beautifully in these two shlokas. So Bhagavan kind of wants us to make sure that we don't forget that even though I see the matter, what I do, we give too much importance to this body. And what I perceive, that alone is important. We give too much importance to what I see, hear, smell, taste, touch. But they say, shift your attention to the reality, which is the spirit, because of which I am able to see, hear, smell, taste, touch. So that is the essence of these two shlokas, that do not only focus on the body and its possessions. The body, we give too much importance, give more importance to who I really am. I am that spirit. So here the topic of creation, Bhagwan has done in very brief, which in the Rig Veda has so many verses, in the Puranas has hundreds and thousands of verses. But here very briefly, the Lord has summarized. So we'll go to fifth shloka now, which is the heart of this shloka, of this chapter, which is the gunas, or the various qualities, which we see the differences. We see so much different. Even though you say there are only 4 groups, ground, and then moisture, and egg, and womb. But even people born from womb are so different. Men are different from women. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And then among women, there are differences among men, mentally, physically, emotionally. Then I am different from dog and cat, even though they were all born from the womb. And then the birds, we see the variety. The fish, we see the variety, even though they are born from the same prakriti, same matter, and same spirit created. And all are born from eggs. Yeah, but why there is so much variety? Why is there so much difference in the plants? Why is the mango sweet and the Karela, the bitter gourd, why is it bitter? Why some plants healthy, some are poisonous? So Bhagavan says that is because of their qualities, their gunas, which are of 3 or in nature. So we'll do that in the 5th shloka. Sattvam rajastama iti.
Sattvam rajastama iti.
Gunav prakriti sambhavaha.
Guna prakriti sambhavaha.
Nibadnanti mahabaho.
Nibadnanti mahabaho.
Dehe dehinam avyayam.
Dehe dehinam avyayam.
Okay, together. Ramaban, please mute. Sattvam rajastama iti. Gunav prakriti sambhavaha. Nibadnanti mahabaho. Dehe dehinam avyayam. So the teacher says there are 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And we'll talk about what they are. Sattvam, rajas, tama, iti. In this way, there are 3 gunas. Gunaha, prakriti sambhavaha. They are manifested from prakriti. In fact, prakriti or nature is nothing but these 3 gunas appearing as all this variety. So all this variety, billions and trillions of forms are because of the 3 gunas? Yes. Ultimately, it is only 3 gunas in various combinations and permutation that created this whole universe. So, but it is out of prakriti, out of the creative power, out of nature. Sambhavaha means they are born out of prakriti. But what happens to these gunas? What do they do to us? Nibadnanti. Nibadnanti means they bound us. Nibadnanti means nishchayatmika. Definitely they bind us. We get bound, we get caught with these 3 gunas. And then he calls him Mahabaho. Oh, Mahabaho, you think you are a great warrior, but you are also caught in these gunas. When do I get free of these gunas? At enlightenment. Until then, I am captured, I am stuck. Nibadnanti, oh great warrior. Dehe, and where do they reside? Where are these gunas? In this body. And who is the indweller of this body? Dehi. Dehi means the consciousness apparently caught in this body or manifesting in this body is called Dehi. And that's why Navadvareshu, Dehi na kurvanna karayan. So he says this consciousness functions through 9 holes in this body, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth and 2 ears, 7, and then 2 below. So through these 9 holes, this Dehi, this consciousness functions. And this Dehinam is avyayam, immutable. It is the Supreme himself. And he says, yet you say it gets bound. How can the Supreme consciousness, which is all pervading, gets bound in this body? Hare, how can that happen in this limited body? So we'll go over that. How does that Supreme consciousness, which is avyayam, which is immutable, unchanging, all pervading, eternal, appears to get bound, and then I get stuck, and then I say, oh, my wife, I can't leave her, my child, my, whatever, my possessions, my people, my, all that, my, I and my, we get bound, we get caught. So he says there are 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is of the nature of knowledge, purity. Rajas is of the nature of activity, and tamas is of the nature of inactivity or laziness. Sattva is active, and we'll talk about that, but sattva is knowledge, is pure, and it is said to be the influences under which we all function. These are what determine what I am going to do. So say if early in the morning I wake up, I'm in a very peaceful mood, and I sit for meditate, and I meditate upon the Lord, I'm in sattva. Then I go out in the day and go to work, and whatever activities I am doing, even, whether I am retired, but I have to do work. So those become rajas. And then at the end of the day, I'm tired and sleepy. That is tamas. But also, there are some people who are predominantly sattvic or predominantly rajasic or predominantly tamasic. Predominantly tamasic means they are living in laziness, sloth, and they don't care what happens. You tell him, he said, I'm hungry. He said, get up and get some food from the fridge. No, he won't even go there. He'll lie down and say, let the food, bring it to me. Even that much, they won't get up and open. So that is called laziness, where people expect society to take care of them. They don't do anything for themselves. So that is tamas. Rajas is better because at least this person is active. He's doing something. But the problem is that when the rajas is not mixed with sattva, with purity, then that rajas becomes selfishness, becomes passion, becomes overactivity, too much doing. So rajas, it has to be tempered by sattva. If rajas is filled with tamas, with negativity, then such a person becomes dishonest, becomes crooked. But if that rajas is mixed with sattva, with purity, then such a person works for the benefit of mankind. And sattva is the highest, where the person remains in that pure state, in that knowledge state. Not that he does not work, and we'll talk about that, but he works where it is required. They are also given as 3 colors. Sattva is white, rajas is red because of passion, and tamas is black. So, like in there was a famous movie, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. So if you want to describe the 3 gunas, that is good, bad, and ugly. I think it was Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood was in that movie. So these 3 gunas are beautifully explained in that. They are also called rope. Rope means they bind us. How do they bind us? We'll talk at the end of this particular shloka. And they are also called moods of the mind. You say, I don't feel like working. It's Sunday afternoon. I just want to take a long nap and just have a can of beer and watch TV for 3-4 hours, binge watching all till midnight. I just want to. That is tamas. You sit, when you sit in front of the TV, you eat in front of the TV, 12 hours you are watching, binge watching Netflix, you watch all the movies. That is tamas. Rajas is, as I mentioned, when you are overactive. So we can see that the entire psychology of mankind was given thousands of years ago. They knew the entire psychology of how men function. The entire modern psychology is based on that. And that is called Prakriti, that is called the three gunas. And it's not that it is, we are always sattvic. As I mentioned, it changes. It changes in the day or with knowledge. As you have more knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, as you will find that slowly your activity will become less. You will stop doing unnecessary things and sit and spend more time in study, in contemplation. So from rajas, slowly your mind will go to sattva. So that is how we grow in life. You don't always remain as tamasic or rajasic. You become more sattvic, or others who may be sattvic or rajasic, but then they grow towards tamas. If they become extremely selfish and violent and, taking from others and not giving. So man can change throughout our life. So the goal of life should be to grow upwards. From tamas, laziness, you go to activity. From activity, you go to purity. And the examples they give is like ice. Ice, you can say, is tamasic. It is still. It's not doing anything. But when it melts and becomes a river of water, then the river of water is rajas, has so much power. And then from the river, when it's heated and becomes steam, then that steam can even drive an engine. In the olden days, they used to have steam engine, which would pull like 50 or 60 cars. So that is sattva. So sattva is energy that is stored, but can be used at the right time. Rajas is uncontrolled energy. Tamas, of course, is laziness. So laziness is tamas. Rajas is uncontrolled activity. Sattva is controlled activity, which is for a higher cause, for an unselfish cause, for benefiting others. And same thing in the body. We have all three. Like this gross body that we can see, this hand, feet, mouth, that is all tamas. That is the gross matter. And in this gross body, there are the organs of action and the pranas, the 5 pranas, prana, apana, vyana, samana, udana. Prana is the intake, apana is the excretion, samana is the digestion, vyana is the circulatory system, and udana is that which takes us at the time of death, which takes the subtle body out. So even thousands of years ago, our rishis are already described all the physiological systems of the body, the circulatory, the digestive, and how it works. And everything was described. So our body is also a mixture of all three. There is the tamas, there is rajas, and there is sattva. And what is the pranas and the organs of action are rajas. And what is sattva in my body? The sensory organs, the eyes, ears, nose, skin, and tongue, which perceive, not the visible, not the gross eyes, but the ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to smell, taste, and touch, this whole world of shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, all the sounds, the sights, the colors, the smells, the taste, the food, all the perceptions are because of this sattvic aspect called the ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to smell, taste, and touch. You can call it like the nervous system. Because of that, I have the ability, and also the subtle body, which is the mind, intellect, memory, and ego. Mana, buddhi, chitta. Not chit, the consciousness, but chitta is the memory, and ahankara. So mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, mind, intellect, ego, and memory. So these 4 aspects and the ability to see, which they call as the nervous system, is the sattvic aspect of creation. When that Prakriti divided into 3, The tamasic became this gross body. The rajasic became the organs of action and the pranas, and then the sattvic became that. This also we have studied in Tattva Bodha and Atma Bodha. So that is how this entire variety came about. As we said, some people are predominantly sattvic, others are predominantly rajasic, where they are overactive and they say, just sit down in one place. He says, no, I can't sit. I have to do. I have so much to do. If he doesn't have anything to do, he will pick up his phone and just start, going to the web and sending messages and cannot sit still. So that is rajas. And third is the group that we can't get them to do anything, but they all bind us. You say, I understand tamas will bind. If I am lazy, I'll be bound. If I am overactive, rajas, okay, then also I am bound. But how about sattva? They say you should always remain in sattva, and from tamas you go to rajas and go to the sattva and purity, and then sattva also can bind. Yes, sattva also can bind if you get too much attached to sattva, and that will go in more detail in the next week, how these three gunas bind us. But in the end of the 14th chapter, Bhagavan Shri Krishna will tell us what is gunatit, how to go beyond all three gunas. That's why they say from tamas go to rajas, rajas go to sattva. And then when you stay long enough in that sattvic mood where you are studying, you are meditating, you are contemplating, your mind is always connected with God. Even when I'm working, slowly you even go beyond sattva to my being, to my state, which is called gunatit in the 14th chapter, which Bhagavan in the 2nd chapter had called Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajnasya ka vasha samadhistasva Keshava. So Arjuna had asked, so how can it be bound? You say it is avyayam, it is immutable, it is, infinite, it is all powerful, it is all knowing. Then why do I get confused? Why do I feel that I don't know anything? Why do I feel I am limited? Why do I feel I am useless? Why don't I feel I am that infinite consciousness? Aham Brahmasmi. The teacher tells us, you are that. Tat Tvam Asi. But I don't feel it, and I feel myself to be limited. I feel myself to be suffering. I feel myself to have all these aches and pains. So we say that it is not that you are truly bound, you are as though bound. You think you are bound. You say, but I feel such a strong attachment to my children and my family and my things and my possessions. They say, actually, you are infinite. You are not bound. That's what the teacher says, but you think you are bound. So the bondage is as though. Even though I am infinite, I feel myself to be limited, and that is ignorance. That's what we said in the beginning today earlier, avidya kama karma. Because I do not know who I am, I do not know my true nature, I think I am bound, I think I am suffering, I think I am miserable. But the scripture says, Chidananda Rupaha, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am of that nature of consciousness, bliss, eternal. But because of ignorance, I think myself to be this limited being. And the world also tells us, Are you are useless. You can't do anything, And people will discourage us. You try. Are you think you can study Vedanta? What are you? So they start by discouraging us that you don't know anything, you can't go anywhere, you are no good. And from childhood, we start thinking, I am this, I'm given this name. Okay, I have this name, Jagruti or Lata or Satish, and I have this form, male or female, and this nationality, this color, this race. That is all superimpositions. That is all necessary for functioning in the world. This ego is required, this individuality. To do any activity, I need to have this individuality. But inside, I should always be aware that I am of the nature of supreme consciousness. That is who I really am. And this name and form is nama rupa, is a temporary appearance upon me. I actually support this whole body. I am the substratum of this body. I am the substratum. So this I is not as an ego, but I as the supreme consciousness. And when there is supreme, if I am supreme consciousness, there can be only one. There cannot be many supreme consciousnesses. So one supreme consciousness is manifesting through all, through everything, including me. So that I have to understand. And all the time, remember that I am the occupant of this body. I am not this body. And when it comes time to drop this body, I'll cheerfully drop it because it's not me. It's a pair of clothes. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naro parani. Bhagavan Shri Krishna says it already in the 2nd chapter. Just as when a pair of clothes gets old, it's torn and it's no longer used, I just toss it, or I give it to Goodwill, or I give it to the Salvation Army. So similarly, when this body becomes old and is no longer useful for me, I drop it and I take a new body. But if I am enlightened and if I have become one with the truth, then I don't need to take another body. And that is called enlightenment. That is called nirvana by Buddha. That is called what Jesus said, the Father in heaven and I are one. So that understanding, when we get that there is no two, there is only one. And that is the understanding of this great soul, this enlightened master. And then he goes beyond all bondage, beyond all limitations, realizing his supreme nature. So we will end here today. So we talked about creation, how matter and spirit came together, and there was created this cosmic womb, this golden egg, which the energy penetrated, and this explosion happened, and this entire variety of beings was formed, and how the creation happened, and how everything is then lived by that consciousness. And then we briefly talked about the 3 gunas: sattva, which is purity; rajas, which is activity and passion; and tamas, which is laziness, indolence. The next several verses, Bhagavan Shri Krishna will further expound upon these 3 gunas and how they affect our lives, how we get caught, and how even sattva can bind. So the next week we'll start with how sattva can bind. Even though we think sattva is pure, but we can still get caught up in that. And rajas and tamas also can bind. So we'll do that next week. The 3 shlokas will talk about how these gunas catch us, how they affect us, how they bind us, and how we can get out of them. So we'll end here. Very, very beautiful chapter. A lot of practical, you will see a lot of practical applications of this chapter will be covered in more detail. So we'll stop here. We have about a few minutes. Anybody has any questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead, Lata.
Here in the book, it says the 3 gunas are also called in Vedanta as Maya.
Yes.
So can you explain that a little bit? And how does that dissolve? I mean, how do you go about that?
Right. So Maya, Prakriti, these are interchangeably used, which is the creative force. And so Prakriti itself consists of the 3 gunas. So you see, whatever is manifest has 3 gunas. Even the gods in heaven have, they have more sattva, they are more, spiritual, but everything. And then there are, even in heaven, there are gods, and then there are demons, in our Puranas, they explain. Even Ravana, even though he was a great scholar, he was still very tamasic. He had a lot of wrong ideas. So everything is made of these 3 gunas. So Maya, Prakriti, Mahat, they are all different terms used to describe that same creative power, which is from which everything emerged. which is,
Okay.
they also call a Hiranyagarbha, the golden womb. So these are different terms in Sanskrit for that same entity, which is the inert aspect, which has no
Right.
sentiency, which is the inert aspect of creation, which has no life. And then the seed of life has to penetrate to and live in that. That's why even in the mother's womb, they say that, I think after about the third month or fourth month, the jiva enters, the being, the new entity enters, and then that's when this fetus gets its own personality, gets its own life, gets its own manifestation. So in the beginning, it is just a piece of flesh in the mother's womb growing. Of course, it is an unmanifest child, but then the jiva, the new individual, enters after the third or fourth month, around that time, and then the life starts, and then you can feel the heartbeat. That's why they say, you can hear the heartbeat and all that. So all that happens. So Prakriti, Maya, Mahat Brahma, Hiranyagarbha, these are all different expressions of that. In fact, Mahat in one place, as I mentioned, is the first stage after Prakriti. Another place they say Mahat is the Karyebhya and Bharanath. So Mahat is the cause of this whole creation. Also Bharanath also sustains the whole creation. So different scholars give different terms, but one should not get confused. One should just remember it is spirit and matter. Then it becomes easiest.
Oh,
Once
okay.
we have understood that.
Yeah, that is much basic explanation. All
Yes.
this other terminology really confuses the mind sometimes for me.
Yeah. So that's why, that's why having a teacher like Puja Gurudev or other acharyas, they make this clear, because what happens is different authors wrote these Upanishads at different time. The Vedas were composed at different times, and that's the beauty of Sanskrit, that the same entity can have so many names, and the same
Names.
name can have so many meanings. So
Right.
one has to know the context, and depending on context, like Maya is said to be the illusory power, which veils my knowledge,
Correct.
and creates this veiling power, and then the projection power. So in different Prakriti means nature, Maya means the veiling power and the projecting power. So different aspects of that same creation are given. Hiranyagarbha is that egg that was lying undifferentiated, in that water. So it is all the same thing, but different powers, different aspects of that one. Just as one lady can play different roles, can be a mother, can be a sister, can be a manager at work. When she's driving, she's a driver. When she's swimming, she's a swimmer, but it is one. So similarly, one has many names.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Well, you have done a beautiful job of explaining all that, but one parallel I see between this and what we learned in Tattva Bodha, where Sri Shankaracharya ji talks about Anatma, volumes and volumes about Anatma, and then he says, "You are not this." So similarly, Lord Sri Krishna does the same thing here. He
Right.
talks extensively about all these gunas and how they influence you. And then he says, you have to go beyond that. You have to be gunatit, right? So, and then the other thing you mentioned beautifully on that, sattva, you touched upon that it also, Gurudev talks about, how he describes like rajas and tamas like iron changes, and sattva as the golden change.
Yes.
But even if the golden change is strong enough, it can still bind you.
Right.
So So I think we have to be very careful and not get bound by sattva either. So
Thank
that's
you.
all I have. To say.
Very
Thank
nice.
you.
So Atma is the spirit and Anatma is the whatever we see, whatever which is
Everything
inert.
else.
Inert. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Correct.
Very well explained. Thank you. Kusum, anything else you would like to add?
I like the last, the fifth paragraph in the fifth sloka. It's so beautifully, and you already explained that as though the spirit is bound, though it is infinite, uncontaminated. And it gives a beautiful example of a dream that if you murder somebody in dream, your hands will be all full of blood. But when you wake up, you don't see any blood. So similarly, the eternal self, the life, functions through matter as though has limitations and is contaminated, but it remains untouched. So this only we can learn once we pass through the gunas. And the second thing, I had long time ago made a graph for creation, which was like this, that the Brahman, how with the Maya, he creates the Ishvara and then the God, and then with Saguna, he does all these avtaras and all the human beings, the plants, animals, rocks, and the human beings, and how they have that. So this was like creation, how it happens. And,
Right. Thank you. You can send me a picture of this. I can post it on the WhatsApp.
I sent you when we were doing study group, but I will send it again, so you can do it now.
Right.
I will send it. I have it here. So, and it very beautifully explains the whole this creation that you did, the two slokas.
Yeah.
But I will definitely send you today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Auntie Moini Auntie just said that in Garbha Upanishad, there was an ancient scripture written by Pipala the Maharishi, part of Atharva Veda. The same Gita chapter 14, shloka 3 can be found. So you can go to YouTube and look for that, Garbha Upanishad. Thank you, Auntie, for giving us that. Pipala the Maharishi is the one who taught the Prashna Upanishad. We are doing Ishavasya on Tuesday. When we finish in a few weeks, we'll be starting Prashna Upanishad, and I'll talk in more detail about Pipala the Rishi. So thank you for that information.
Also,
it's on your
Anilji,
chat feature. Yes.
Okay, Anilji, and also you said about the 4 kinds of creation like Svets, Andaj, Udbijam, and Jarayuja. Also, I just happened to read last night in Shiva Purana that I'm reading, and he gave all these things and explained how it is happening. So
Yes.
I think all the Puranas mention, and it is such an understanding that rishis, so many thousands of years ago, without any distractions or without any scientific things, could find out what's happening. It's really marvelous.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody has? Carrie, you have any questions, comments? Anything about the
I
Sanskrit?
did have one. This is just a comment, but when you were talking about the spiders, I was remembering, I remember seeing a cartoon years ago about, there was this really big ugly spider, and he had this fly hotel, and the flies would come up and the spider would make a beautiful beds out of his web, and the flies would come in, and mostly they were just like kind of tired, and they'd see the beautiful bed, they just jump into the bed, and then they get, they get bound up and
Right.
they get caught by the spider. Anyway, this one spider, he comes in, he and his wife come in, and the spider has this beautiful bed and everything in their room for him. But this spider, this fly, he's very smart. So he looks around, and then he doesn't jump on the bed right away. And then he sees these the other flies that have been caught in the beds. It's like tamasic flies. And so he tries to get away with his wife. And then the spider has this lasso made out of web and tries to catch him. But he uses all these different methods to get away from the spider. Like he burns the web, and he cuts the web. So he uses all these different tools to get away from the spider's web. And I was just thinking, this is just like the cartoon. You use different tools to get away from the web.
Right. That's how Maya catches us. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we'll do the Aarti now.
Om na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyado bhanti kutoyam agnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati.
Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagwan ki jai. Can't hear?
Yes.
Can you hear now?
We cannot hear.
No, everybody else can hear.
I can hear.
Huh? I think maybe your computer is muted.
Oh my God, you are unmuted.
I'll find another one.
Guruji's Aarti is really very
Cannot
clear.
hear nothing.
I know Guruji's, but the tabla is not very good in that. But we'll try that. We'll find another one.
Or maybe Jayashree can sing it.
I think Boliye Shri Satguru Nath Maharaj ki. Can do the closing prayers. Satish Bhai, Varsha Bhai. Yeah, take everybody, please take the Aarti.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu
Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve
Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukh Bhag Bhavet Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tam Soma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Mritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.
Thank you, Hari Om. See you next
Yes.
Sunday.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Hari Om.
Thank you, Hari Om.